Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. In 2022, the US government and those other members of the G7 imposed sanctions on Russia, which then they have increased a number of times, and 14 in fact. They amount to 20,000 sanctions on people, companies and entities across all of Russia in all sorts of sectors. They also urged their companies to leave Russia and stop doing business in the country. Now, there are thousands of foreign companies who are doing business, employing hundreds of thousands of people in every conceivable area of business and commerce, from retail to finance, engineering and manufacturing. So what is the situation today? Well, hundreds of foreign companies made the decision to leave Russia in February 2022. However, many of them actually changed their minds and later decided to stay, having encountered many difficulties, including trying to sell their assets and the prospects of losing huge amounts of money. Now, that said, more than half American companies, for example, didn't move anywhere. A number of Europeans decided to leave, but the majority of the US companies decided to stay, continue and make large profits despite the sanctions and the so-called toxic Russian market. In total, there were at least 659 US companies, according to American Chamber of Commerce, in Russia, operating in a variety of sectors in Russia in February 2022. Most of them were involved in IT and telecommunications, 143, general industry, 129, food and consumer goods, 104, entertainment, sports and leisure, 68, and various support services, 51. Thus, 310 organisations, or 44% of them total, left the Russian market or have stopped working with Russian companies. So, 159 organisations continue to work in Russia in the same mode. Another 178 are still working, but they've made some changes. What changes they did was the way they worked, meaning some suspended new investments or cut back on their marketing activities. Now, before I continue, I'd like to appeal to you to help me support my channel and help it develop with my website, SCOBRICSInsight.com. You can do that by making a small donation, and all you have to do is click on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen under this video. And I appreciate all the donations and do thank everybody who makes a donation personally. Now, in addition, some companies have switched to delivering their goods through distributors or have actually changed their brand names. The companies that continue to operate, most are in the industrial sector, food, consumer goods, IT, pharmaceutical and entertainment and leisure. Among the organisations that continue to operate with some changes, a significant proportion were in telecoms, financial, in various sectors. In Russia, for example, household goods manufacturers, including Procter & Gamble, Colgate-Palmolive, Johnson & Johnson, PepsiCo, Mars, coca-cola, etc. They operate as normal. There's also Burger King, TGI Fridays and Papa John outlets. Clothing brands such as Guess and Crocs and Vans have just switched to wholesale deliveries to Russia. Now, some of these companies explained their intentions to stay in different ways. The most advantageous position that they took was humanitarian. Yeah, right. They felt that depriving the Russian consumer of Wrigley Spearmint chewing gum or a Mars bar was barbaric and inhumane. There's still more than 350 large American companies operating in Russia. Now, the fast-moving consumer goods sector, the FMCG, is particularly well represented and remains one of the most profitable. In 2023 alone, the large American corporations paid around $1 billion in profit taxes to the Russian budget. Now, what distinguishes most of the remaining FMCG companies is their mission statements of providing essential goods to the Russian people. Yep, you heard that correct. Uncle Ben's rice and Coca-Cola are life-sustaining essentials. But the real reasons are pretty obvious. Why would you want to sell your highly profitable business that you've spent years building up for next to nothing because some politicians in your home country have a disagreement with the actions of the Russian government? Of course, then you have to pay compensation to Moscow They'll lose their brand and market share, and your long-term contracts with Russian partners, plus the amount of profit that your business makes. Plus, many companies operating in Russia see the blatant hypocrisy of the US government, which is urging them to leave Russia while they're still doing business with it. I mean, they're spending billions of dollars, for example, on Russian-enriched uranium, which the US is dependent on for 35% of its supplies to keep the lights on, and it also buys billions in Russian fertilizers for the agricultural sector. I mean, the bottom line is that in 2023, for example, PepsiCo's sales in Russia amounted to $2.8 billion. Coca-Cola HBC, which continues to operate through local subsidiaries, $1.5 billion. Procter & Gamble, $1.2 billion. Philip Morris International, $1 billion. The confectionery maker Mondelez International, $900 million. Johnson & Johnson, this medical devices and pharmaceuticals, had revenues of $800 billion in 2023. The General Electric, which remains in the energy sector, was $700 billion. And industrial and consumer goods, 3M, $600 million. And the turnover of agro-industrial company Cargill, $500 million. Pfizer, the medicines company, $400 million. So the figures of these top 10 are astonishing. I mean, for many companies, leaving the Russian market would mean a significant loss of revenue and, more importantly, profit. Moreover, some of them prefer to maintain a presence in different markets around the world in order to diversify their risk and remain globally competitive. Plus the fact that through parallel imports, if the company leaves, the goods are still going to be available by being bought in bulk in neighbouring countries like Kazakhstan, Turkey, or others, and shipped to Russia. So it's a bit pointless to actually do that. Your sales are going to be the same. They're just getting in a different country. I mean, so as a result, many American players continue to work in Russia. Now the US has put pressure on the European companies to leave Russia much more than their own. And in many ways they've succeeded. I mean, in 2022 alone, almost all the European car brands left. And that didn't end well for them. Their place was immediately taken over by the Chinese, which now dominate the market. And what I can gather anecdotally, they produce an excellent product at a reasonable price for the Russian consumer. Of course, given the policies of the multinational corporation, sanctions pressure on Russia can be seen as part of a broader strategy to squeeze out European and Japanese companies from the Russian market. I mean, the total losses of the Western car industry are enormous. I mean, the Renault Group alone lost $2.3 billion it had to write off when it pulled out in 2022. Volkswagen and Porsche had its BMW and Skoda brands in the top 10 best-selling cars in Russia, so its losses must be considerable. I mean, what is more, European companies have left a loophole for themselves to return. Some have made deals with their local management, which gives them the opportunity to buy the business back at a previously agreed rate once the situation moves back to normal, which it's bound to do. Others, as the Financial Times recently wrote, have abandoned plans to leave Russia altogether as they feel that all the early pressure's gone and they can just now wait it out. I mean, also Moscow's regulatory measures have also worked out for them by making it actually extremely difficult to leave, with measures that include a mandatory 50% discount on the valuation of the assets from countries that Russia perceives as unfriendly when they're sold to Russian buyers. Plus there's also an exit tax of 15%, and then of course the difficulty of getting the money that they get out of Russia. Now the most interesting part, say observers, will begin when the Western companies that did leave decide they want to come back. I mean, sectors for a return, as highlighted by analysts, are first and foremost consumer goods, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, plus obviously technology and innovation. I mean, as for American companies, their return will probably be made possible by the outcome of the US elections, as it's expected that Trump will win and some of the sanctions will be eased and they can actually start to return to Russia. But even now, after 2 years of anti-Russian sanctions, both American and European companies are openly or secretly planning to return to the Russian market. I mean, the behaviour of American companies is telling as they follow the market leaders in accordance with their recommendation of their strategy management and their analysis. I mean, just as Coca-Cola has applied for re-registration of all its trademarks and brands in Russia, many other American companies are doing the same because they don't want to lose the Russian market, says Svetlana Sazonova, who's a professor of economics at the Russian State University of Management. I mean, the place of those who have left is being successfully taken over by Russian manufacturers and companies from friendly countries, for example, members of the BRICS or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I mean, large companies have more opportunities to evade sanctions too, or the outfall from them, while smaller ones actually lose the market, which means that sanctions are actually used as a strategic tool by large companies who can expand their presence in the market and use it to squeeze out competitors. I mean, more careful and selective control will now be required by any company that's looking to return to Russia. First of all, the Russian government will be looking and assessing at whether any companies that want to come back in could harm the domestic market of companies that got involved in import substitution. So it doesn't look like Western companies are going to get a historical second chance to take up all the various niches that they once occupied in Russia. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this video, you can help me fund the channel and my website SCO BRICS Insight.com by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen. Thank you.